A 24-year-old spends $11,000 on a brand new car that loses 25% of its value the second he drives it off the lot. A 27-year-old maxes out a 401k and dumps it entirely in an actively managed fund that charges 1.2% annually in fees, quietly surrendering $160,000 over 30 years in compounding he will never see. A 22-year-old passes on $20 a month of term life insurance because he figures he'll sort it out later, then gets diagnosed with a health condition at 34, and later is now unavailable at any price. And then somewhere in all of this, there is a 26-year-old sitting at a kitchen table deciding whether to open a Roth IRA or wait until he figures out his financial situation. His financial situation is that he is 26 years old. That is the financial situation. He is sitting on the most valuable asset in any wealth building system, time, and treating it like something to be solved rather than deployed. This video is about 9 specific things you can buy, open, or install in your 20s that will do more for your financial future than almost everything you do in your 30s, 40s, and 50s combined. Not 9 habits, not 9 mindsets, 9 specific purchases and decisions with real dollar amounts and real math attached to each one. And I am going to show you why these specific 9, and not the ones constantly promoted on social media, are the ones that compound into something that actually matters 4 decades from now. Here's the thing that trips people up before we even begin. Most people believe the barrier to building wealth is money. It is not. The barrier to wealth is almost always time. And the cruelest design flaw of the whole system is that the window where time works hardest for you, your 20s, is the exact window where nobody has taught you what to do with it. Let's fix that. There are 9 items in this video, and they fall into 3 buckets. The things that multiply money, the things that protect the money you're multiplying, and the one thing almost everyone gets completely backwards, a decision that sounds like a service and functions like a tax. I am going to cover them in a specific order because the escalation matters. The things I tell you first are good. The things I tell you last will stay with you longer than the video does. Here is the frame I want you to hold through this entire conversation. Every financial decision you make in your 20s is either planting an orchard or buying groceries. Groceries feel necessary. They feel urgent. They feed you today, but 3 years from now, you have nothing to show for them. An orchard takes time to plant. Nothing visible happens for a while. And then one day it starts producing, and then it produces more, and then it produces more than you can eat. The problem is that the window to plant an orchard cheaply with the best soil and the longest growing season is specifically your 20s. By your 40s, you can still plant, but the trees are smaller, the season is shorter, and the seeds cost several times what they cost when you were 25. Everything in this video is an orchard decision. Let's start planting. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you the specific calculation that makes most people genuinely angry when they see it for the first time, the one about financial advisors and fees. But first, let me start with the 2 items that look the most boring on the surface and that most people in their 20s still manage to get completely wrong. Item 1, a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. There is a person named David. He is 25 years old, and he starts putting $200 a month into a broad S&P 500 index fund. Nothing sophisticated. Expense ratio of about 0.03%, which Vanguard and Fidelity both offer right now in 2026. He automates the contribution. He does not check it every week. He does not watch financial news. He does this for 30 years. Since 1957, the S&P 500 has delivered an average annual return of 10.33%. At that rate, David's 30 years of $200 monthly contributions could accumulate to approximately $395,000. His colleague Sarah starts the identical strategy, same fund, same $200 a month, same market 10 years later at 35. She contributes for 20 years instead of 30. Her balance at the 20-year mark at the same rate is approximately $142,000. $253,000. That is the price of those 10 years. And David did not contribute $253,000 more than Sarah He contributed $24,000 more. The rest of that gap is pure compound growth, the orchard that started earlier and had more seasons to bear fruit. Every single 20-year period in the history of the S&P 500 has concluded with positive total returns. That is not a guarantee going forward, but it is a very long track record. Now, here is the part that most people who actually do open an index fund still get wrong. And this is where we move from boring into infuriating. A seemingly small difference of 0.5% in expense ratios, not even 1 full percent over 30 years on a $10,000 initial investment with $500 monthly contributions translates to over $50,000 in lost returns. And according to the SPIVA Research Group, which is the industry standard tracker for this, over the 20-year period from 2005 to 2024, 94.1% of all domestic actively managed funds underperformed the S&P 1,500 Composite Index. Over the 15-year period ending December 2024, not a single U.S. equity fund category had a majority of active managers outperforming their benchmarks. 0 categories out of 22. So, low-cost index fund, 0.03% expense ratio, automatic monthly contribution, no market timing, no touching it. That is item 1. It is the simplest machine in the orchard, and also the one that does the heaviest lifting over 40 years. Item 2, term life insurance. I know, you are 24 and you are thinking about life insurance the way you are thinking about joint replacement surgery, theoretically real, not yet on the calendar. Here's why that specific logic is going to cost you, and why I put this second instead of later. In 2025, the average monthly cost of $1 million 20-year term life insurance policy for a healthy, non-smoking male was $53 at age 30, $67 at age 40, $180 at age 50, and $466 at age 60. The price roughly doubles every decade. And if you develop a health condition at 35, which a non-trivial percentage of people do, the option to buy cheap term insurance either becomes dramatically more expensive or disappears entirely. You think insurance is what you need because something bad is going to happen. The actual reason to buy it in your 20s is that you are locking in the lowest price at the moment you are the most insurable you will ever be in your life. And I want to be completely direct about one thing. Do not buy whole life insurance. Term life costs 8 to 14 times less than whole life for the same $500,000 death benefit, and the gap is widest in your 20s and 30s, when whole life is most aggressively priced. The strategy, commonly called buy term and invest the rest, remains the gold standard for wealth building in 2025. Because the money you save on premiums goes into an S&P 500 index fund instead of a cash value account that returns roughly the equivalent of a mediocre bond fund with a sales commission layered on top. The orchard does not need a whole life policy. Plant the difference. My cousin called me last year genuinely excited about a financial product his new girlfriend's father had recommended. It was a whole life policy bundled with an annuity. I said, "Who sold it to him?" He said, "The guy is literally called a financial advisor." I said, "What does he charge?" He said, "Nothing. He gets paid by the company." I said, "Right. So the company pays him for recommending their product to you." Long pause. He bought it anyway. The premium was $400 a month. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you about taxes and retirement accounts is one of those things that looks simple and carries $1 million implication. Most people don't take it seriously until they're looking at a taxable brokerage statement at 55 and doing the math on what it would have been. Item 3, a high yield savings account for your emergency fund. The best high yield savings accounts as of July 2026 are paying up to 4.5% APY. Compare that to the FDIC's national average of 0.38%. If you have $15,000 sitting in a Chase or Bank of America savings account, you are earning $57 per year in interest. Move that money to a competitive high yield account and you earn $675 per year. Same money, zero additional risk. FDIC insured up to $250,000. The cost of this upgrade is 10 minutes online. But here is the reason this matters architecturally, not just arithmetically. Most financial disasters in your 20s are not caused by bad investments. They are caused by emergencies with no floor under them. The car breaks down, a medical bill arrives, the job disappears. If you don't have 3 to 6 months of expenses liquid and accessible, you solve those emergencies with a credit card at 24% interest, or you sell investments at the worst possible time, or you crack open a retirement account early and pay income tax plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty. High-yield savings accounts are considered the best place to house an emergency fund because they combine safety, competitive interest rates, and relative liquidity. A well-funded emergency account does not just protect you from emergencies, it protects every other position in your financial portfolio from being liquidated at the wrong moment. It keeps the orchard alive through the drought. Item 4, a Roth IRA. This is the one the 26-year-old at the kitchen table keeps postponing. And I want to be specific about why that decision, multiplied by a couple of years of delay, has a 6-figure price tag. The Roth IRA's real power is in the numbers. A 22-year-old who maxes out their Roth IRA every year at a 7% annual return will have approximately $1.48 million in completely tax-free money by age 62. No taxes on the growth, no taxes on withdrawal, no required minimum distributions. Contributing $7,000 per year. The 2026 limit at 7% grows to roughly $96,000 in 10 years. $287,000 in 20 years, $661,000 in 30 years, and $1.48 million in 40 years. You think the choice between a Roth IRA and a regular taxable brokerage account is about returns. It is not. It is about the tax rate applied to those returns. The Roth IRA Advantage for a 28-year-old contributing $7,000 per year over 39 years is approximately $160,000 more in their actual pocket just from the difference in tax treatment. Same investments, same contributions, same market, different container, $160,000. The Roth IRA wins decisively if your tax rate in retirement equals or exceeds your current rate. For younger workers in their 20s and 30s who are likely to be in higher tax brackets at retirement, the Roth IRA almost always wins. And there's one more wrinkle that most people don't know. Roth IRA withdrawals do not count toward your combined income for Social Security taxation purposes. A retiree drawing primarily from a Roth IRA can keep more of their Social Security benefit tax-free compared to one drawing from a traditional 401k or IRA. It is a machine that grows, and grows in a way that future tax policy cannot easily reach. For 2026, the income threshold for a full Roth IRA contribution as a single filer is an adjusted gross income below $168,000. Most people in their 20s are well below that. By their late 30s, many are not. The Roth IRA is an access point that closes as you become more successful. Buy it while you qualify. By the way, hit subscribe if you like the content, otherwise YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Knowing these numbers and actually building a system around them are two very different things. I had access to compound interest calculators and Roth IRA projections years before I did anything meaningful with them. The data alone doesn't build the plan. That's why I put together a digital book called The Exit Code. It's an analysis of 50 years of retirement data turned into a mathematical framework for converting maybe someday into a specific date. Two things in that book connect directly to what we've been discussing. The first is what I call the dynamic withdrawal method, a replacement for the 4% rule that adjusts based on real market conditions and avoids the sequence of returns trap that has wiped out early retirees who did everything else right. The second is the lazy portfolio, built on 50 years of actual data, which has historically outperformed active traders over 30-year windows by doing almost nothing, which is exactly the point. You can get the exit code through the link in the description for less than the cost of dinner out. Every year you delay, the math compounds against you. The 3 items left in this list are the ones I almost left out because they're harder to explain quickly. But they're also the 3 with the highest leverage per dollar and per decision. Let me start with one that most financial content aimed at young people almost completely ignores. But first, I've been building a character in the background of this script that I want to name now. Her name is Elena. At 27 in 2023, Elena bought a duplex in a mid-tier Midwest city. She was not wealthy. She had never made more than $80,000 a year. But she used an FHA loan, put 3.5% down, roughly $15,000, and moved into one unit while renting out the other. Her mortgage was $2,200 a month. Her tenant paid $1,100. Her actual housing cost, $1,100 per month, while simultaneously building equity in an appreciating asset. 2 years later, she moved out, rented both units, and bought another duplex. The rental income from the first property now covers the mortgage on both buildings. Elena is 31. She owns 2 rental properties. She built this from one smart decision at 27 and a tolerance for a shared wall. Elena exists in this script because she is the physical embodiment of item 5. But before item 5, there is item 4.5, which is the thing that freed up enough monthly cash flow to make item 5 possible. Because you can understand every investment vehicle on this list and still be unable to fund it if your fixed costs are eating everything you make. Item 5, a boring used car. There is a guy named Tyler. He bought a brand new Audi A4 at 26, $52,000, financed at 6.5% over 60 months. Monthly payment, just over $1,000. The car was beautiful. By the time he paid it off 5 years later, it was worth approximately $22,000. He had paid roughly $60,000 principal plus interest for a $22,000 asset. And here's the part that never makes it onto the dealership floor. If Tyler had instead bought a 3-year-old Honda Accord for $19,000 in cash and put the $800 monthly difference directly into an S&P 500 index fund, over 5 years at 10% annualized, he would have ended up with approximately $62,000 in that account. He chose negative $62,000 versus a parked investment of $62,000. That is not a small decision. That is a $124,000 gap built entirely around a depreciating machine that took him to work. New cars lose roughly 20 to 25% of their value in the first year. The vehicle you are financing today is cheaper today than you are paying for it. A 3-year-old version of almost any reliable model gives you the overwhelming majority of that car's useful life at less than half the depreciation hit. In 2026, with inflation running at 4.2% year over year and financing rates still elevated, the math on a new car purchase is worse than it has been in a decade. The orchard does not need a luxury vehicle. The orchard needs cash flow to plant more trees. Here is what the financial content on social media in 2026 mostly teaches 20-year-olds: trade options, flip crypto, build passive income through a dropshipping store, selling products you've never seen from a factory you've never visited. And then they show you a screenshot of a trading account with $200,000 in it, taken right before the 3 screenshots of it dropping to $30,000. Those ones don't get posted. Item 6, your first house hack. FHA loans allow as little as 3.5% down on properties up to 4 units, as long as you live in one. A $450,000 triplex requires only $15,750 down, instead of the $90,000 a conventional 20% down payment would require. This is the mechanism that makes house hacking accessible to people in their 20s and 30s. The structure is straightforward. You buy a multi-unit property, duplex, triplex, fourplex as a primary residence, live in one of the units, and rent out the others with the goal of covering the entire mortgage through rental income. You are using the mortgage as leverage to buy an asset that will grow in value over time. Your tenants pay off the mortgage, and you build equity and gain experience as a landlord and potentially live at or near zero housing cost. This is Elena. This is item 6, working exactly as designed. House hacking is considered optimal for people in their 20s because they typically don't need as much space and can share some of it with a tenant. Younger people tend to have fewer financial obligations, no family commitments yet, and can take risks that their 40-year-old counterparts cannot. The renter across the hall is building zero equity. You are building equity with their rent check. That is the structural difference. And the window for doing it cheaply with an FHA loan rate, owner-occupied financing advantages, and minimal family complication is specifically now. This is where it gets really interesting. Because I've been describing things that grow money and things that protect it. What I haven't talked about yet is the specific item that most intelligent people in their 20s completely miss, not because they don't care about it, but because it has never been framed as something you should actively purchase. And it costs so little now that the return on the decision is almost embarrassing. Item 7, disability insurance. You think life insurance is for death. Correct. But here is what the pamphlets don't put at the top. The probability that you will become disabled before age 65 is dramatically higher than the probability that you will die before 65. According to Social Security's own actuarial data, a 25-year-old faces approximately a 1 in 4 chance of becoming disabled before retirement. That is 25%. Your odds of dying before 65 are considerably lower. And yet nearly every financial conversation aimed at young people focuses entirely on death and almost nothing on disability. Long-term disability insurance, which replaces 60 to 70% of your income if you can't work, is one of the cheapest policies you can buy in your late 20s. If your employer offers it, elect it today. If you are self-employed, price a private policy this week. It will cost more than you expect. It will be a fraction of the cost of your income stopping for 6 months. Item 8, a marketable skill certification. This is not about going back to school for another degree. It is about identifying the specific high-value skill adjacent to what you already do that commands a significant earnings premium and acquiring it efficiently. A software developer who adds a cloud architecture certification can negotiate a 15 to 20% salary increase. A marketer who learns SQL and data analysis moves from executing campaigns to measuring and directing them a shift worth $30,000 a year in additional earning power in most mid to large organizations. A project manager who picks up financial modeling moves from operations into strategy at a meaningfully different compensation band. Here is the orchard math on this. If a targeted skill certification increases your salary at 25 by $15,000, and that increase compounds naturally through career progression over the next 35 years, the effect on total lifetime earnings is not $15,000. It is several $100,000 because every subsequent raise, every future role negotiation, every performance review builds on the higher baseline. The certification itself might cost between a few hundred and a few $1,000s. The return on that investment, measured over a career, is among the highest of anything in this list. Item 9, a single session with a fee-only fiduciary financial advisor. Not a financial advisor. A fee-only fiduciary financial advisor. The distinction is the most important word choice in this entire video. A standard financial advisor who charges 1% of assets under management is not being compensated to give you unbiased advice. He is being compensated as a percentage of your assets. The larger your portfolio, the more he earns, regardless of performance. On a $200,000 portfolio at 1%, over 30 years at 10% gross returns, the compound effect of that annual drag is not $20,000. A 1% expense ratio over 30 years consumes nearly 25% of your potential wealth on a $500,000 portfolio. On $1 million portfolio at retirement, that is $250,000. Not stolen, not through fraud, quietly compounded out of your returns, denominated in percentages that never feel like real money until you run the actual math. The alternative is a fee-only fiduciary, someone who charges a flat hourly rate or a fixed project fee and has no financial incentive to recommend any specific product. A good 2-hour session with a qualified fee-only planner costs between $300 and $600. It produces a specific, objective action plan calibrated to your actual situation. The return on that $300 investment, measured over a lifetime, is measured in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in avoided fee drag alone. The kicker is this: the system is not designed against you because it is malicious. It is designed against you because it is legal, invisible, and denominated in percentages instead of dollars. Nobody writes you a check that says, this year I took $2,300 from your compounding returns. They take 1%, and you nod because 1% sounds like almost nothing, and $125,000 sounds like exactly what it is. Let me make this concrete with a real scenario. Meet Jordan, 24 years old, $60,000 a year, $400 a month in student loan payments. No other debt. Jordan does the following. Opens a Roth IRA and contributes $400 per month. At 7% return, that grows to roughly $661,000 over 30 years tax-free. Separately, puts $150 per month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund with a 0.03% expense ratio. Over 35 years at historical average returns, that compound balance approaches $700,000. Buys a $20 per month term life policy for $500,000 of coverage, locking in the rate at $25 while he is maximally insurable. Keeps $9,000 3 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account earning 4.2% instead of a standard bank account earning 0.38%. Today's top savings rate is more than 6 times the current national average. That interest rate difference on $9,000 over 30 years compounds into approximately $22,000 of additional wealth that requires 0 additional decisions. Jordan's total monthly investment outlay, roughly $550 across index funds and retirement vehicles. Not a 6-figure salary. No inheritance, no insider edge, just consistent early deployment of capital into the right containers at the lowest possible cost for the longest possible time. At 65, Jordan's net worth from these decisions alone, conservatively modeled, exceeds $2 million. The median net worth for Americans in their 50s is $222,000. Half of households in that age range have less than that. Jordan's edge was not intelligence or extraordinary income. It was 24-year-old timing and a consistent refusal to optimize for things that felt good in the short term. You think the problem most people face in their 20s is not knowing what to do. That is not the problem. The problem is that they know what to do and don't do it because it doesn't feel urgent yet. Compounding is invisible for the first decade. The orchard looks like dirt for years before it produces anything. And human psychology is not built for delayed feedback loops. We evolve for immediate results, which is exactly why $20 monthly term insurance feels like wasted money until it's not available anymore, and why a Roth IRA contribution feels abstract until you see a projection of what it becomes in 40 years. The subplot running through this video was Elena and Tyler. Elena bought the duplex at 27 with minimal capital and a high tolerance for inconvenience, and is now 31 with 2 rental properties and a net worth in the mid to high 6 figures from real estate equity alone. Tyler bought the beautiful car, feels good about his monthly payment because he can afford it, and at 31 has a car worth $22,000 and approximately $30,000 in a savings account. They earn almost the same salary. The difference is not discipline in the abstract sense. The difference is knowing which decisions grow and which ones just feel like they do. Here are the 3 things I want you to do this week. 1, open a Roth IRA if you don't have one. Not next month, this week. The contribution limit in 2026 is $7,500. And the window that allows you to contribute at your current tax rate only exists while your income is below the threshold. 2, call your employer's HR department and find out the expense ratio on every fund in your 401k. If anything is above 0.2%, research whether a lower cost option exists in the same plan. Most plans have one and nobody selects it because the default is set by whoever negotiated the plan's menu. 3, price 1 month of term life insurance for yourself. Go to a comparison site. Enter your age and health status and look at the actual number. I promise you, it will be lower than what you assumed. The gap between I should probably do that and actually doing it is where most people spend their entire 30s. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And if you find that hard to believe, go ask the person who was following trading signals in 2021, where their portfolio is now. They might need a minute. Since 1957, the S&P 500 index has delivered an average annual return of 10.33%, a number that sounds abstract until you run it against the dollar amount of starting 10 years too late. Starting retirement contributions at 25 instead of 35 can turn a $225,000 lifetime contribution into $2 million or more by age 65 versus $931,000, with a gap driven entirely by compound growth over one extra decade. A 20-year-old needs just $95 a month to retire a millionaire. A 40-year-old chasing the same target needs $1,052 a month, roughly 10 times harder, for the same destination. The math does not change because you weren't paying attention to it. It just keeps